You just opened your first brokerage account. You put in $200. You feel like a genius. 3 weeks later, the market drops 8% in a single week, and you sell everything. At a loss, in a panic, on a Tuesday afternoon, on your lunch break, hands shaking a little. Here's the thing. That's not bad luck. That's not the market being unpredictable. That's the single most common mistake almost every beginner investor makes in their first month, and it has almost nothing to do with picking the wrong stock. It's not about what you buy. It's about how much cash you had left over after you bought it. Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to avoid the mistake that quietly wrecks more beginner portfolios than any bad stock pick ever could. Let's call her Maya. 22, first real paycheck, finally has $3,000 saved up. She's watched a few videos. She knows the S&P 500 historically returns about 10% a year. She knows compound interest is basically magic. So she does something that sounds responsible. She puts almost all of it in, $2,600, into a mix of ETFs and a couple of stocks she's excited about. 2 weeks later, her car's transmission dies. Repair bill, $1,400. She doesn't have it. Not in a savings account, not under her mattress, not anywhere except locked up in a brokerage account that's currently down 6% because the market's having a rough month. So she sells, at a loss, to pay for a car repair. That $1,400 loss isn't really a car repair cost anymore. It's an investing mistake because she never should have been forced to sell in the first place. And here's the part that stings. If she'd just left that money alone, the market recovered within 2 months. She locked in a loss on money that would have bounced back purely because of bad timing that had nothing to do with the market and everything to do with her transmission. This happens constantly, and it's almost never talked about because it's not a flashy mistake. Nobody makes a video titled, "I lost money because my car broke down." But it is hands down the #1 thing that derails beginner investors in month 1. The mistake is investing money you don't actually have spare, not money you're saving for a vague someday, money you have zero emergency cushion behind. Here's why this is so dangerous, and it's not really about the market. It's about forced selling. When you invest with a real emergency fund behind you, a market drop is just a number on a screen. Annoying, sure, but you don't have to do anything about it. You can wait it out. When you invest without that cushion, a market drop plus a life emergency turns into a decision you never wanted to make. Sell now, at whatever the price is, because you need the cash today. And the math on this is brutal. The stock market doesn't go up in a straight line. Historically, even in good years, it's completely normal to see drops of 5 to 10% multiple times. Most of those drops recover. But recovery takes time, and if you need your money out before it recovers, you don't get the recovery. You get the loss locked in permanently. So the mistake isn't Maya bought the wrong ETF. The mistake is that Maya's investing timeline and Maya's actual life didn't match up. She invested money on a forever timeline while living a anything could happen next month life. I want to be honest about why this happens because it's not stupidity, it's actually a really understandable trap. First, the content you're watching makes it feel urgent. Every finance video, including probably some of mine, talks about how starting early is the biggest advantage you have. Compound interest, time in a market, all of that is true. But it can create a kind of panic. If I don't start right now with everything I have, I'm falling behind. That panic pushes people to invest cash they should have kept liquid. Second, emergency funds feel boring. A savings account earning basically nothing, sitting there doing nothing, feels like a waste next to a stock that could be up 20% this year. Nobody makes exciting content about a savings account. But that boring account is the thing that keeps you from ever being forced to sell your investments at the worst possible time. Third, beginners underestimate how often emergencies actually happen. It's not just car repairs. It's a security deposit for an apartment. It's a friend's wedding you didn't budget for. It's your phone screen shattering. It's a medical bill. These aren't rare. They're basically guaranteed to happen within any given year. You just don't know exactly when or how much. The people who avoid this mistake aren't smarter investors. They just built the boring safety net before they built the exciting portfolio. Okay, So how do you actually protect yourself from this? A few concrete things. 1. Build a starter emergency fund first, even a small one. You don't need 6 months of expenses saved before you invest a single dollar. That's overkill for a lot of beginners, and it delays you way too long. But you do want something like $500 to $1,000 sitting in a separate, boring, easy-to-access account before you start investing seriously. That's enough to absorb most of life's random curveballs without touching your investments. 2. Only invest money on a timeline that matches the market's timeline. Ask yourself honestly, could I leave this money untouched for at least 3 to 5 years? If the answer is no, if there's a decent chance you'll need it sooner for a trip, a move, a purchase, that money doesn't belong in the stock market. It belongs in a high-yield savings account. Boring, but it can't get wiped out by a bad month. 3. Separate your accounts mentally and physically. This sounds simple, but it matters. Keep your emergency fund in a completely different account from your brokerage account. When it's mixed together, it's way too easy to convince yourself, I'll just dip into the investing money this once. Different account, different app, even makes that mental line much harder to cross. 4. Automate contributions instead of investing in one lump sum you can't fully explain. Instead of dropping your entire savings in at once like Maya did, consider investing a set amount consistently, say, every 2 weeks from your paycheck. This does 2 things. It keeps you from overcommitting money you might need, and it naturally builds the habit of investing being routine, not a one-time emotional decision. 5. Before you invest a single dollar, write down what you'd do if you needed $1,000 next week. If your honest answer is, I'd have to sell my investments, that's your sign you're not ready to invest that money yet. You're ready to save it instead. None of this is complicated. It's genuinely the least exciting advice in all of personal finance. But it's the difference between Maya's story and someone who sails through their first year of investing without ever being forced to sell at a loss. Here's how I want you to think about it differently. Your emergency fund isn't separate from your investing strategy. It is your investing strategy. It's the thing that lets your investments actually get the time they need to grow instead of getting cashed out early because life happened. Warren Buffett has a quote that gets used a lot about how the stock market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient. What people miss is that patience isn't just a mindset. It's something you have to financially engineer for yourself. You can't be patient with money you actually need. Patience is only possible when the money in the market is money you can genuinely afford to forget about. So the emergency fund isn't the boring prerequisite before the real investing starts. It's what makes the real investing possible at all. The number one mistake beginners make in their first month isn't picking a bad stock. It's investing money they can't afford to leave untouched, which forces them to sell at the worst possible time when life inevitably throws something at them. The fix: build a small cushion first. Only invest money on a 3 to 5 year timeline or longer. Keep the account separate and automate instead of lump summing everything in on day one. If this helped you rethink how you're approaching your first few months of investing, hit subscribe. I'm putting out videos every week breaking down exactly the kind of stuff nobody explains to beginners clearly. And let me know in the comments, have you ever had to sell an investment for an emergency you didn't see coming? I want to hear the story. See you in the next one.